It is May 3rd, 2024, and all kinds of interesting things are happening in the world. Apparently, Turkey has halted all trade with Israel, and Jerusalem has denounced the dictator Erdogan. So, Turkey is halting Israeli imports and exports, as Colombia is also cutting diplomatic ties with Israel as well. And it looks like the Labour Party inflicted heavy local election defeats on Rishi Sunak over there in that area of the world, back there in London and all in that space. But definitely, it looks like that is a defeat that is going on as well. And Russia is calling France leader Macron refusing to rule out troops for Ukraine very dangerous. So that is what the Kremlin is saying. And the Kremlin is branding comments on Ukraine by France's Macron and Britain's Cameron as dangerous. So definitely there are even some things that are being outlined because apparently the NATO members are outlining two conditions for deploying troops to Ukraine. And Israel gives Hamas a week to strike a deal or Rafah offensive will begin. So Hamas is studying a Gaza ceasefire offer from Israel, and they are hinting at progress. So definitely, it looks like Hamas leaders might be calling for changes to the hostage deal proposal, but they are sending a delegation to Egypt for further ceasefire talks as well. But it does look like that is going on as also in the world of the news. And as I was telling one of our founders, Nick Palvader, earlier, ex-UK leader Boris Johnson was turned away from a polling station for forgetting a photo ID under a law that he ushered in. So he's the one that brought in the law, and then he was turned away from a polling station after forgetting his own ID. And as I was talking to one of my neighbors who is from Kenya, who's actually one of the people that is a kind of a person that is at the counter. I don't think that he's a manager, but at the counter of one of the convenience stores that I go to on a regular basis. And he is from Kenya. And he was saying how concerned he was about the floods and everything. But apparently, Kenya floods and death tolls are rising, and rights groups are saying that the government response is lacking. So there are mass evacuations ordered ahead of a cyclone that is heading that way as well. And visitors are stranded at Kenya's Masai Mara Nature Reserve as devastating floods have killed nearly 200 people. And like I said, it looks like dozens of tourists have been evacuated out of that area as well. And apparently, it looks like the animals might be showing us some that they know how to do some healing as well. I know that one of our folks has got an animal that they've got to tend to as well, but an orangutan was seen treating wounds with a medicinal plant. And apparently, that's the world's first because they were seeing that he was healing his facial wounds with a medicinal plant and everything. So apparently, that's the first time that folks had seen this being engaged in a never before seen wound healing behavior. So it looks like maybe the orangutans know how to take care of themselves in terms of their health and all along those lines. And a top French university is shut as police have removed a pro-Palestinian group out of that area as well. We know that the protests are happening in the United States, but they're happening in other parts of the world as well. So the French police evacuated pro-Palestinian students from Sciences Po after an overnight sit-in. And Mexico is questioning three people over missing American and Australian tourists. So it looks like that is going on as well. So the U.S. surfer and lacrosse star are missing on a Mexico camping trip. And definitely that is one of the things that people are talking about as well, as three were arrested and a burnt out ute were found as Mexican police searched for the Australian brothers. And authorities have found evidence while searching for the missing Australian and American surfers in the Mexican region that has been plagued by cartel violence. And India's Rahul Gandhi is to contest the elections from a family borough. So Rahul Gandhi files a nomination from Raberia, and Gandhi's have opted out of Amtha. So definitely, it looks like that's going on because that is definitely a large election that is taking place as well. And UN is urging Georgia, the Georgia that's not here in the United States, but the Georgia that's part of the Russian theater and everything, to withdraw the foreign influence bill. So EU and the US have urged Georgia to halt foreign agent bills as protests continue. So that is something else going on in the world. And speaking of floods, as I mentioned with Kenya and some of its bad weather, there are also some things going on in Brazil. So Brazil floods and dam collapses and death toll rises in Rio Grande do Sul. So the death toll has from heavy rains and flooding has risen to 13 in southern Brazil, and apparently there's torrential rain in Brazil, and they're saying that it might have killed at least 29, with more missing and all in that space. And coming back to the Middle East, Blinken met Netanyahu in Israel as U.S. ramps up its push for a ceasefire deal. So it says that the U.S. is very close to a bilateral deal with the Saudis, but it hinges on Israel normalization. So that's something else going on in the world as well. And like I said, Colombia has broken its diplomatic ties with Israel, and the U.S. senators and the ICC meet over a possible arrest warrant for Netanyahu. So ICCU prosecutors warn Netanyahu against intimidation during the Gaza war, and it definitely looks like the folks in the whole kind of foreign politics and also foreign judicial thing are also having some conversation around what's going on in Israel and other parts of the world as well. And a newly elected prime minister in Solomon Islands is likely to keep those close Chinese ties. So Jeremy Manelli is elected as the Solomon Islands prime minister, and it looks like that is a China-friendly person that will be coming to that country as well. So it'll be interesting to see what goes there. And speaking of China, damage and injury to the Philippines in South China Sea is irresponsible behavior. So China apparently fired water cannons at the Philippine ships in the South China Sea. And that's something else that folks are talking about in the news also. And Paris has inaugurated a giant water storage basin to clean up the River Seine for the Olympics. So they've inaugurated a giant water storage basin to clean up the River Seine for the Olympics, because they definitely want to have a clean and a good image if you've got the Paris Olympics coming your way. So the Paris 2024 is confident that that particular river will be clean for Olympic swimming. So definitely it looks like they're trying to get it ready for Olympic swimming, and maybe there'll be some other Olympic sports there as well. But it looks like they are trying to get ready for that. And in China, the death toll rises to 48 in a China highway collapse, or an express collapsed in southern China amid heavy rains. And that is something that we do know can happen, because we remember what happened in Baltimore. So it's happened there, and it's happened here as well. And gangs in Haiti are launching fresh attacks days after a new prime minister is announced. So residents flee as Haitian gangs are launching new gun and arson attacks in the capital. So we'll see how that whole area deals with their own kind of internal conflicts and everything in that way. So be interested to see what folks have to say about that. And of course, we know that the hush money trial is still continuing. As a matter of fact, we're on yesterday was day 10 of the Donald Trump hush money trial. And definitely they'll be getting ready today for day 11. And we'll see where this whole trial goes and all along those lines. And Governor Kristi Noem is in the news again, because apparently her book is dogged by new claims of inaccuracy. So Governor Kristi Noem's account of meeting North Korea dictator is in doubt. And apparently she also was saying that Nikki Haley was a lone wolf. And definitely it looks like some people are wondering about the book, some of the claims that she has in the book, and whether the books are true. I mean, some of the claims are true or not. And the Medal of Freedom Award recipients for 2024 include Nancy Pelosi and Katie Ledecky. So those are some of the folks that have been given the Presidential Medal of Freedom, along with Opal Lee. So definitely there are some folks that are definitely getting that honor and everything. They saying that it is a who's who of folks, and I guess it's a who's who of folks that might be Democratic supporters and all in that space. But we'll be seeing what goes on in that way. And the Russians were sent to the Niger air base that was occupied by U.S. troops. So Russian troops enter a base housing U.S. military in Niger, according to U.S. officials. So definitely looks like it has been confirmed by Secretary of Defense Austin that Russian has been deployed to air base housing U.S. military in Niger. So definitely that'll be interesting to see what goes on in that way as well. And a bill to combat anti-Semitism on campuses has prompted a backlash from the right-wing side of that part of the Republican Party. So Getz is under fire for defending anti-Semitism vote with anti-Semitic trope. And the House Republicans are launching multiple investigations into the college protests. And Getz dubs the House anti-Semitism bill a ridiculous hate speech bill, and all in that space. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And apparently the Houthis are trying to get into the whole notion of what's going on in suspensions and the U.S. protests, because the Houthis are offering education to students suspended in U.S. protest crackdown. So Iran is offering scholarships to students expelled from the U.S. and European universities over the anti-Israel protests. So that is something that I guess folks can go to that particular world and get a education from that part of the world. But that's where they are offering. Now, whether anybody takes it up or not, it'll be interesting to see. But Arizona governor is signing the abortion law repeal following the political fight that was out there. But there is looks like the Arizona Democratic governor is signing a bill repealing the 1864 abortion ban. So definitely it looks like that Arizona governor has signed a repeal of the near total abortion ban, but the procedure still may not be available there this summer. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the whole abortion conversation as well, because a number of things are going on in that space also. And like I said, 134 protesters were arrested on 2 campuses. And according to the New York Police Department, they had no connections to the school. So we'll see if that is the case or what was going on in that particular case as well. And Eric Adams is under pressure to divulge details on the outside agitators at the campus protests and all in that way. So we'll see if there were outside agitators, because we do know that they do come into play sometimes and everything. And Biden says order must prevail after the UCLA Gaza protest camp was cleared. And UCLA Chancellor Gene Block was criticized for slow action after weeks of chaos and violence on the campus. And apparently some of the crosstown rebels are criticizing the campus protests and all along those lines. And even some of the student journalists are asking what's really happening or telling what's really happening on the various campuses as well. So like I said, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and we'll see who else is in the room with me. And maybe we'll start off with some conversations around what's happening with the Trump case and all along those lines. So I know I've got Rick Rosner, and I've also got Sasha Starr. I think Nick Palveda is joining as well. But what's our thoughts? It looks like we're on day 11 of this lovely trial and everything along those lines. So if we're going to have any new news in this case, and is there going to be any sort of consequences for Mr. Trump in this hush money trial? And it's still going on, but he's out there campaigning as well.
Well, I think there are already consequences. That he looks like crap. He falls asleep almost every day. Even if there's a mistrial or a not guilty verdict, some damage has been done. But he's also pretty bulletproof among his most ardent followers.
Yep, I would agree. He's
I think the damage, the real damage is about to come when Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniel, Karen McDougal, even Hawks, when they will take stand, that's where the real damage will be. I don't care actually if he will be convicted or not, because if he will be convicted, he will have 1 month in jail, he will appeal, it will go on for another 3.5 years. So it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the American public will have to see for themselves what kind of a con man he is, and what kind of a flawed man he is. And people will sooner or later ask, is President of the United States, does he have to be a decent human being or not? If not, then vote for him. You got it. Now, if he has to be a decent human being, Trump is not.
Well, I mean, and see, this is where the election is going to come down to. Do you want a person who is really not a good human being, but he's competent? Or do you want somebody who's incompetent, but he's a good human being?
Well,
And,
wait a
you know,
minute. You're not calling Trump competent, are you? Because he's got a lifetime record of being bad at stuff.
He's very volatile. He's like a stock that goes up and down. So
yeah, but I mean, he's like bad at business.
But you know, the thing is, the reality is the country under Trump, and this is what they're going to hammer. The economy was doing fine. He was running a circus, but the economy was doing fine. People's
until
lives
2020 when he botched COVID.
And then you got to look at his competition, Biden. Okay, I just found out he's spending another $80 billion. How much money is that per person? $80 billion.
$240 a person.
How much?
$80 billion is $240 for every American.
Well, what's he spending?
Okay, and now what is he blowing his money on now? He's sending it to the IRS to go chase people. I'm serious, you know.
But when you fund the IRS, like my dad was a CPA, I was doing my own taxes till they got too complicated. The IRS was broken. When you fund the IRS, they're able to go after mega rich tax scofflaws.
I would agree if that's what they do, but I'm telling you, the agency is a law unto themselves. It's like he spent $80 billion on the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. They only need like 26 to be solvent. $80 billion. And I figured, well, they're going to go after large plans. I've got 2 plans that have 3 people in it. And I have, what is it I'm doing? I got 2 subpoenas I got to answer. They're going through this huge federal case. I got 2 big federal cases going on right now. Now, who's funding it? Joe Biden. Joe Biden. Let me say it again, Joe Biden. And let me tell you something. The Republican Party choices. 1, I get to deal with this trash, which I'm dealing with personally. Or 2, I can choose what's behind door number 2, where Carol Merrill is now standing. And we know what that is. It's a clown. We got that. But at least I won't have inflation running out of control and IRS agents and PBGC agents up my rear every day. So the thing is, those are my choices. So the Republican Party isn't going to go away. No matter what Trump isn't going to go away because of Biden. Biden is a bad choice. Okay. So now the thing is, you're going to have to make your choice. Flip your coin. Yeah. But don't just
hold on. The $80 billion isn't new. They've been talking and planning this for years now. And I've got the article on it. So the IRS had 78,000 employees in 2021. It says it plans to bring on 20,000 new employees by the end of 2024. That includes 72 hires in enforcement and 6,500 in taxpayer services. Because you know what happens if you try to contact the IRS.
Yeah. They don't get any.
Yeah, you don't get any answers. But just really quickly for both of you and even Sasha as well. So we got $80 billion going to the creation of IRS agents and everything along those lines. I forget what it is, but it's somewhere in between 60 and 80 billion that's going to the various countries that are having various conflicts and everything along those lines. So are we saying that if Trump comes into office, none of that money will be going out, or will he still be sending that money to the maybe he'll be paying for the IRS, maybe he'll be paying for the relief in Taiwan, Israel, and
you're asking a good question. Usually the thing is that money's been allocated and it's gone. It's most unfortunate. In other words, there's no way to claw it back, Mark. So it's almost like it's gone, it's out. But here's what upsets all the Republicans who do follow this. They're upset with the fact that this stuff goes on every day. And what does it create? It creates a lot of inflation, which, by the way, doesn't hurt rich people. It hits everybody. So everybody's paying for it. Go to the grocery store and you're paying for Joe Biden's Biden economics. And they're going to hit this really hard in October, November, when people get to flip the coin and see who they're going to get. A person who is a jerk, but ran actually a decent economy until COVID, or a person who is a nice person, but can't find his way out of a paper bag.
Well, there are 4 of us here and everything, but there are 4 of us here right now. Maybe more will be joining later. And sometimes we do have women that are with us as well, including Christina and including Kim when she's here, and a few others that will join us on occasion as well. But will the abortion issue play a factor as well? Because a lot of people are saying that women are going to be very pissed at some of the things. Yes, they're going to look at the pocketbook issues, but they're also going to be looking at their right to have the choice to their own body and everything. So, what are
Yeah.
our thoughts around
Let's
how
finish up
important
on
is
the
that?
IRS. Of the 80 billion, half of 42 billion is going to scrutinizing sophisticated high-income taxpayers. And when you do that, according to studies they've done, you get that back that money like 5 or 10-fold, because when you and then the rest will go to they also have a pledge not to increase audits on people making less than 400 grand.
You know, if they do what they're saying they're going to do, Rick, I agree with you. They will actually bring in more revenue and they'll actually provide service. But my experience is they don't. In other words, what they do is they say we're going to do this and they do something different. Now, you as a taxpayer, or me or anybody out here, you have to fight this stuff. It's not a lot of fun. And right now, we're fighting this stuff. Okay, we're fighting the lies of the Democratic Party on the front line.
Hold on a second.
And so the thing is, frankly, the Republican Party, the people who are members of the Republican Party, they get tired of fighting the lies of the Democratic Party,
speaking
the
of
Democratic
lies,
funded institution.
Nick,
so they have this
speaking of
2025
lies,
project
there is a
remove them all. So
now, speaking of lies and everything, there is a potential, and some people are saying that she totally shot her way out of being vice president, but nobody has actually said that she has lost that seat and everything. But apparently in Kristi Noem's new book, she has accused Nikki Haley of threatening her, and she's also claiming that she met with the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un while serving in Congress and everything. And now everybody is wondering how much of this is reality, because they're thinking that maybe she made up some of these stories, including Nikki Haley threatening her and everything. So will this be one of those cases of lies that could get back and cause problems and everything, particularly if she becomes vice president?
No, she's already cooked. She's done. There's a whole article I'm reading now on how, even before the dog murder story came out, that she probably wasn't going to be the VP choice. I haven't gotten.
I don't think she's a credible candidate for VP at all. But you did say something also very interesting, Mark, and this I had to research. It's Sana'a University. Okay, they actually offered scholarships to the people that were expelled in the this college protest. So this university is quite interesting. It's actually ranked 2799, almost 2800 out of 18,000 universities. It's in Yemen, and the place it's in Yemen, the buildings are like 2,500 years old, except they're in this big civil war. Seriously, I mean, so the buildings that are 2,500 are UNESCO heritage sites get bombed out by the Houthi rebels. So, but I find it very interesting. Now, Trump made a new statement. I think he said they're bringing crime, they're bringing drugs, but some of them are good people. And you know who he's talking about? UCLA students. Anyway, so
one more thing about Trump as president and businessman. Trump did a lot of tariffs, and tariffs are super duper inflationary, because you hang a tariff on a car from China or steel from China, they just increase the price right back to the consumer, which is us.
Yeah, and there's retaliatory tariffs, so we understand that. But that was his thought. Steve, are you going to be meeting Uncle Joe today, or is he coming to town? Uncle Joe.
I heard. Yeah, I got to leave. I met him yesterday briefly.
He was here yesterday.
I was there yesterday. It was a great event. I came to just quick update, and I've got to leave again. I'll be back on Monday. But yeah, it was a really great meeting with the president. I hope to open up the show on Monday. I attended. I met him for a few minutes, and along with Michael Regan and some other leaders from the White House. But he basically talked about lead in the water, and the $9 billion of money that's come in, $3 billion coming into North Carolina for lead. And the mayor of Wilmington, my good friend Bill Sapo, inspired everyone by quoting Pericles, which is a long story because he and I have been studying Pericles together. He's one of my best friends. And it was quite an amazing day. And I think a lot of energy. The president looked really good, really alert, really on top of things. The most presidential I've ever seen him in the last couple of months, actually, and very healthy. So I think that, I think the question is the economy, but this is the third time he's been in North Carolina in 4 months. and I think a lot of money is being invested. And I think Roy Cooper, who's a very popular governor, that's going to help him in North Carolina. So, and of course, all this going on while Trump. He also talked about broadband and the high-speed access to the internet provided to 900,000 North Carolinians. He talked about the savings that's been on internet bills. Talked about healthcare. So continued reminders of.
Hey, Steve, Steve, hold on a second, because Nick's still here, and I know that Nick sometimes brings up this notion of internet not being needed for internet for all and everything, but it sounds like Biden is actually promoting this idea. So could you actually explain why he's wanting the internet bill and what the internet bill will be doing and all along those lines? Because I know that Nick has been for several weeks fighting this idea of internet for all.
I think the idea of internet for all is, this whole idea of, being able to, have access to the internet in areas where it's underserved. Now, I don't know the way it is in Canada, but there's for years in North Carolina, you had areas where you could get very low dial-up, and the speed is low, so you can't work, you can't go to school, especially during the pandemic. But I'm sorry, my wife's speaking of Wi-Fi. I'm having a bad Wi-Fi day here today in my house. But that's what we mean by internet access. And so the idea is treating internet just like a utility. You need the infrastructure in there, and so that's really what he's doing. About 882,000 are now having access to the internet. Also, many small businesses. So this is a good thing for North Carolina. I'm going to continue this conversation.
Why do you think Biden's looking more energetic? You think his team showed him tapes of him looking kind of tired and said, you got to step it up with 6 months to go?
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is when he goes a little slower and he talks about the issues, he sounds like he really knows what he's talking about. So to me, he looks more presidential, of somebody that had a handle on the issues, that looked alert around his surroundings. Had some humor in there, made people laugh, kind of goaded about his age and everything like that, but in a good way. So yeah, Rick, I mean, I think that maybe he's being advised and coached that he's just got a little bit more in the tank, and he's got to show the people that he's the president of the United States. But it is comforting, I must say, when you see someone, even though he's 80, I felt safe seeing him as the president of the United States. Even though everyone...
Sorry,
yeah.
Steve, speaking of his age, one of the things we've been talking about for the last several days and everything, but the Gen Z people, particularly on the campuses, are very much been involved in a lot of the protests. And definitely it sounds like Biden is trying to be in some ways supportive of them, but in other ways, definitely supporting of the presidents on the campuses as well. But some people are feeling that could hurt him with Gen Z voters, because definitely it does seem like some of the young voters are wanting him to be more forthright in whatever his opinion is on what's going on the campuses. But what did he address that at all when you talked to him, and what was his thoughts around the notion of these campus protests? Steve, did you freeze?
He looks pretty frozen. I can tell you that 2,000 across campuses in the past couple of days, 2,000 protesters have been arrested.
Let me answer this question. Yeah, Mark, let me answer this question, and I've got to run, but I'll be back on Monday to open up and talk about all this in a one condensed opening, if that's okay. But let me tell you that much of the talk it began with a moment of silence for Charlotte, and I think very sad. The president was late to Wilmington because he was spending time with the families. So, but really there wasn't much talk about the protests in his address, but it is something that is being brought up by analysts about whether this hurts Biden. Just at LBJ, I think Rick Rosner brought out that point. I hear from Sasha Starr, but I'm having bad Wi-Fi, so I'm going to hand it over to Sasha to give some insight, and then I'll be back on Monday. I've got to head out. But thank you all so much, and I'll be updating everyone about the visit on Monday. Thank you. Have a great weekend. See you, Sasha.
See you.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I did know that those protests were going on, and I did know about the because a lot of people are also concerned about the gun violence as well, which is partially what he was down here for, was to talk about the gun violence, because as we talked about yesterday and everything, those Charlotte officers were slain, and they were apparently responding to a call and all along those lines. And I do know that particular individual that was part of that shootout and everything had been involved in several other cases, including some in Person County, which isn't that far from us and everything. So it also comes down to a question of how much do the actual law enforcement agencies talk to each other, and whether they should be communicating more with each other, because it sounds like they were already knowledgeable of the fact that this person was problematic.
Yeah, well, I mean that's going to be something that our leaders are going to have to grip with, is the communication between the law enforcement officers. Like I said, they got a tough job. People don't realize that. It's got to be a really tough job. I was meeting with them, a group that is a very large group in California, to do their pension plan, and their retirement age is 50 and 57, respectfully, because basically it's the physicality of that type of work. And their concern, you'll love their concern, is post-retirement medical. Now, this is a big problem that major media doesn't address. Joe Biden sticks it under the closet, and Donald Trump doesn't have a clue. It doesn't exist in Canada because you guys have universal health care, so you don't have a problem, Sasha. But in the United States of America, when you're in age, let's say 57 to 65, your health insurance premiums are out the roof. And then you have a huge deductible. When I did a calculation, you had to spend $20,000 in healthcare before you receive a dime back. This is the problem that it goes on. He told me, he goes, our police officers, this is our number one problem, is we're not going to get healthcare from 50 to 65, 15 years, or 57 to 65 until we go on Medicare. And I said, your problem's worse than you think. He goes, what do you mean? I said, Medicare is going to be broke by the time you get there. It's broke by the end of this decade. Do you see Joe Biden addressing it? Absolutely not, because he's incompetent. Donald Trump, he's out to lunch. And the media, they're not saying a word because they're paid. They have, wait, do we have a government ad coming in here, Mark? Okay, so they're not saying anything anyway. So what happens is, this is a real problem in this country, not being addressed by anybody, but the people on the front lines know about it. Rick, what's your thoughts on this?
The billing model for medical expenses is crazy in the U.S., which is that the hospitals, in order to not go bankrupt, send out bills for incredible amounts of money, like $100,000 for if you ambulance plus emergency room, you can get hit with, I don't know, 60, 80. And then the insurance companies say, well, we won't pay you that, but we'll pay you 20. And individual people who are unlucky enough, they get hit with these bills. They can't negotiate as well because they're not insurance companies. But the whole deal is, the hospitals send out unreasonable amounts so they can negotiate down and get some money. And that's a crazy model.
The model is absolutely horrible. And like I said, the politicians aren't addressing it. Either they are incompetent, or the thing is they're careless, they're reckless. But let me tell you how bad it really is. So my wife, like I said, we're in New York. She stumbles on a step. We went to the hospital for NYU hospital for like one evening, short time, and they sent her a $7,000 bill. Fortunately, we're on Medicare, so Medicare covered the $2,000. We paid $120, and I don't know where the $5,000 went, but $7,000 for a visit for a night? Are you kidding me? The number one reason people file bankruptcy in the United States of America is medical bills. So, what does Obamacare do? Didn't do anything. Okay, what do the Republicans do? They don't say anything. And what do the Democrats do? They don't do anything at all. So what do we have? We have people that, like I said, if you're between ages of 50 and 65 and you live in the United States of America, you are screwed, and your leaders don't give a rat's rear about you.
I did the same thing your wife did. I stumbled, I planted hard, I tell my wife I broke my wrist. And she goes, well, you need to go see a doctor. And I'm like, why would I see a doctor and spend like $5,000 to be told that my wrist is broken? It's gonna.
That's basically what they do. Basically, they do. If you're broken, they bandage you up and they send you on your way, which is what happened. We were in New York, and then here comes the bill for $7,000, and I'm going like, really? Is that what's going on? But let me tell you, if we weren't on Medicare, let's say you're a regular person, you didn't have insurance, Medicare, you have a $7,000 bill. Fortunately, you know, I'm not going to say they have to declare bankruptcy, but some people may be heavy in debt and then that just topples them over. Sometimes the bills, like you said, they could be $70,000 because there's no cap on it. There's no reasonable fees. There's no fiduciary rule. We've let our healthcare just in the United States of America go to pot. And so is it being addressed by media? No. Is addressed by anybody?
Because
No.
everybody wants, each party and the media want crowbars either to they want to move the news wants to keep eyeballs.
Yeah.
The Democrats want to piss off people against Republicans against Democrats.
Okay.
And if there's an issue that doesn't do that, it gets ignored.
I'll give you another idea how smart these are police officers were. They're expecting to put into their medical trust fund 5% of pay per year. Okay. Which I said, you're heading in the right direction. Medicare takes 1.45 and matched by the employer, it's 2.9. That's the reason it's going broke. 2.9% of pay won't work. And frankly, it should be more than just 2.9% of pay. They should also tax dividends, interest, et cetera. Our health insurance program in the United States is broken. Medicare will go broke by the time.
Well,
I think
speaking of
Medicare
things,
will go broke
Nick,
before we go off the air. It's
Nick,
really,
speaking of
really
things
bad.
that are broke and all along those
Toby's
lines
here,
there,
baby.
yeah,
That's
see,
somebody
Toby,
arguing.
we'll bring him in. But
If
speaking of
Toby
things
ain't
that are
here,
broke,
man, this show goes
speaking
down
of
the
things that
toilet.
are broke and all along those lines, there is a thing that apparently the U.S. government has been wanting to invest in again because it is part of our claim to fame, along with the claim to fame of Russia in the past and everything. But apparently there's a new player in the game and everything. So that is the space race. And we know that there's always a space race. But apparently China launched the world's first mission to retrieve the samples from the far side of the moon. So China is now joining the space race, and they've been in the space race for a while. But it looks like there's going to be a space race between China and the U.S., not so much China and Russia. So are we going to invest a lot of money into going into the various aspects of space, whether that is the dwarf planet?
No, we can't. We're broke. See, the thing is, somebody needs to wake up and tell American public the truth. We can't invest anything to space race. We can't provide internet for all. I'm in Fairbanks, Alaska. I deserve internet. No, United States of America is broke with a capital B. So you can forget the space race, close down NASA, get rid of it. And make America solvent again. Forget about great.
Just to point out, NASA is in the Bahamas, but NASA will get extra funding now because of the whole space race thing. Because when
until Trump gets in, you're correct, Toby. When Trump gets
India
in,
actually
he's going to take NASA. And
when
stick
India
it in the
landed
Bahamas
that lunar landing, that was huge because that ignited the space race again. The reason we went to space the first time because of Sputnik, because that was a space race thing, and we funded a ton of money because we wanted to win space.
That's when we weren't broke.
So we were broke then too. So the space race
like
will
today.
get extra funding, which is amazing because there's a lot of big new discoveries that have happened, and there are a lot of neat things that are going on.
Really good.
The mission that's going to go to Europa. There's a mission that's now just got signed off. That's going
shut them all down.
There's the Voyager 1 and 2, which are now Voyager 1. We're actually speaking again with, which they were able to fix. And Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are both in interstellar space, which are the two furthest entities that we've ever shipped out from the planet at all. Then we've also got a 9th planet that we've just found, which is on the outside of Uranus, which is or Uranus, however you want to pronounce it. But there's that 9th planet that's now out there because Pluto is shifted to a satellite. There's just a lot of neat stuff going on in space.
All right, so the space race helped lead to our current computer tech and digital tech. It put a smartphone in everybody's hands that distracts us, so we don't give a crap about space because we're too busy, looking at social media. But the deal, like Nick's talking about the U.S. being broke, another way to get out of being broke is to sell our stuff to the world, which means we need to develop all this high-tech stuff. We sell 15 years ago, 0 smartphones in the world. Now, 6.5 billion, 7 billion smartphones in the world. People made a lot of money off of that. That helped America. When we start selling little robots to the world that take care of all your crap, And when we start selling life extension to the world, we develop the technology that you can tell somebody who's 70 that we can get them to 95, still looking like they're 65. That's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. When we can tell all the coastal cities of the world that we can save them from climate change and the rising oceans, that's a trillion-dollar industry. If those industries are based in America because we have the education and the investments in technology, then we get all the money from the rest of the world.
Yep. I mean, there's just the space. It is. People don't understand how the impact of educational investment is the biggest investment we can do. The space race is an educational investment. And that, just as Rick pointed out, all the stuff that we're using literally is from that.
This is typical liberal lunacy. There's not a dollar that I can't figure out how to spend. In other words, in my brain, internet for all, let's spend the money there. Oh, space race, let's spend the money there. Oh, charging stations, let's spend the money there. Whatever idea you have, it doesn't matter. I'm Joe Biden. Let's spend the money.
No, hold on. So the first moon mission.
That you can't do that.
No, here's the freaking deal about space. The first.
By the way, send
the Apollo mission.
Money to the PBGC.
All right, let me talk. The Apollo missions were about getting people to the moon and back without computers. The computers they had were crappy. We were still doing calculations, paper and pencil. Now we've got all the computers in the world, and the deal is, how do we get people into space, into orbit, to the moon, to Mars eventually for cheap? Because the bills were because we can use computation to make these missions a lot cheaper than the original Apollo missions.
Boy, my life is going to be so much better because I see a man in space.
What is really, really funny, and Rick, you should get a kick out of this. Nick's argument is from Don't Look Up.
My argument is that we have to be realistic in the amount of money in our financial situation. Okay. And see, the real problem is that we're not. All right. So the thing is, because we're not, we have a Democratic. Thank you for Margie Taylor Greene. At least she's realistic on this part. Okay. She goes, we have a Democratic president. There's no dollar that I can't spend, that I can't justify, that there's some benefit for. I'm surprised he doesn't spend billions of dollars in creating new veterinarian hospitals all over the country, because there's a benefit there. So because there's a little benefit, but that's the federal benefit analysis.
Hold on a second.
Let's spend the money. And
no,
the
hold on a second.
Inflation. When you
but hasn't Nick? You said he hasn't, but hasn't NC State's veterinarian schools and other veterinarian schools receive federal money?
Oh, sure, there's always benefits.
I think they have received federal money. So you don't want them to receive federal money, even though that's some of the education that is going on for even the care of your own animal and everything. So you don't want them to receive any money. Well, even though
not from the federal government. If they want to get money, get it from the state government, get it from the city governments, get it from the local municipalities, assuming they're not broke too, but not the federal government.
So you want the federal government funds colleges throughout, so you don't want them to fund colleges at all. You want to ban.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Of course, we shouldn't fund the colleges. Come on, Mark. They rip people off. And you know that they rip people off with these big student loans. So they're ripping money from the government. This is what colleges are doing. Then they're ripping money from the students, lathering them up with student.
All right. Well,
debt.
here's
you want to spend them more money? What are you, out of your mind? You don't give those colleges a dime.
Here's a simple solution to cut down on some of the costs. Your guy Trump told NATO that if they don't spend 2%, all the NATO countries, that he's going to pull out or whatever, threaten them if they don't spend 2% of their GDP on defense. So Biden could say a similar thing. He could say, we're not going to fund you colleges if you spend more than 10% of your budget on administration. Nobody likes the huge cost of college administration. So
what about the scholarship for Palestinian students? Would that be a part of the game too?
What about the
yeah,
scholarship
five-
for Ukrainian students? Would that be
Palestinian.
part of the thing? Your argument there
no.
is bogus.
You're Mark.
There's scholarships for Ukrainian students as well.
Spend money.
Yeah, there's
to
a
Palestine-
scholarship for every right now. There's a scholarship for different ethnicities, from Italian to German to Ukrainian.
It's all wrong, but go on.
It's
go
not all wrong. The thing that scholarships are a great thing. Education again is what.
I would like to ask you.
And the funny part about the whole argument, Nick, the funny part about your whole argument is you are the giant capitalist on the screen. And college right now is in that capitalist system. It is your dream. But you're arguing against your own capitalist system.
May I, quick question
It's
to you.
I want a meritorious system, not a system.
Have you ever heard about scholarships for Jewish students?
Yes, there are scholarships for Jewish students. As a person that has got Jewish family members, I can tell you that yes, there are Jewish scholarships.
Yes,
and it's wrong too.
I didn't know that.
Where's the merit in that? Hey, I'm Jewish,
again, there are scholarships. Matter of fact, if you are Caucasian, you can go to a HBCU and get a minority scholarship.
Well, why don't we have scholarships
are there for every
for
all these different things? But you and Nick heard the word Palestinian and went off the deep end because you heard the word Palestinian. So that
it doesn't matter. It could be
that you aren't against. It's not the scholarship that you're against. There's something else.
I want to come back to even Nick's point and everything. So there are some colleges that are in dire trouble, and there are people that are their alumni that are trying to rescue them, but there are also their appeals to give them some federal aid and everything. So whether that's a college that is in HBCU like St. Aug is in trouble, or some of the smaller what people call PWI, predominantly white institutions and everything, that are in trouble as well and everything, that are going for federal money and everything. So if I'm hearing you correctly, none of that should be given funding, even though it's part of our education.
That's correct. If it's federal funding, cut it off. You don't have
under the current system.
So you want to cut off all financial aid?
More than half,
federal funding.
Under the current, the way things are today, students going to private colleges, more than half of them get financial aid. Financial aid equals scholarships. Yes. When it costs $350,000 at least to attend 4 years at a fancy college, then people are going to need help. And at Harvard, at most, I think all the Ivies, at least if your family makes less than $100,000 a year, you can get a free full ride.
Yeah, but they don't need help. Here's really what's going on. The colleges are overcharging for their services. So I was looking at colleges overseas. ETH University in Zurich. ETH, one of the top universities in the world that you never heard of, because Albert Einstein went there. Hello. Not only that, a lot of Nobel Prize winners. What's their tuition? How about 1,200 marks a year, like $1,200 a year, $1,500 maybe US. That's it. It's because they're supported by their governments. Our government can't support it because our government's broke, and they charge reasonable tuition. The real problem with the universities here, one of my favorites, and the reason you get subsidized is because they overcharge you to begin with. And so the thing is, they go, oh, well, we're going to give you a scholarship for half. We're charging $190,000, but we're going to give you a scholarship for half, so it's only $80,000. Aren't you lucky you got subsidized?
So I looked up your university. You went to Oxford. This year,
I did a summer program at Oxford, St. Edmunds.
All right, but so that's the #1 university in the world. It costs $9,200. This year, it costs £9,200 for tuition. That's less. That's about $12,000 to go to the world's #1. So so we've got to.
That is correct.
So we need to fix our system. The college admission, the whole everything about getting into college and paying for college in the U.S. right now is effed beyond.
Right.
And Sasha,
right. I mean, the whole system
is
rhubarb, and then half the stuff you learn is worthless. So
Sasha,
You
hold
don't
on a
know
second.
what
Hey,
that,
hold on a
that's not
second. Nick,
fair.
Nick and Rick. Hold on a second. Nick and Rick, I just want to bring this point up and everything because I did look it up. These are the top 44 Jewish scholarships as of May 2024 that are offered. So there are some of the top ones, and these are just some of them. So these are various scholarships that are strictly Jewish oriented, including the Jewish Community Scott Foundation scholarships.
Yeah, but look how much they're paying $2,000, $1,000. Like here's one for 25,000. That'll pay for about a third of your tuition.
You got a point. This is what year was this thing published? I mean, what year?
This was published this year. This is this year.
But like,
I know that, but what Rick is saying, $1,500, $1,000.
But they vary. They vary.
That's not gonna get you- that's not
They
gonna get
vary.
you
They
a
vary depending on
4
who
days
set up
in
the
college.
scholarship and everything, including one set up by the American Zionist movement and everything.
Yeah.
So it depends on who's setting them up and where they're set up. But there are a variety of them, as you can see, and you can go through this.
Yeah, it's really based on
Here's
merit.
another thing that we're
$500
getting into. Here's another thing that we're now getting into. There,
What?
Mark pulled up
more
40
racism
scholarships,
and-
Mark, in that. Didn't that say
44,
40?
44.
40? That means there's more than 40. But now we're arguing that, oh, well, they're not really enough.
well,
We just argued that, oh, well, this is Nick and Sasha's gripe. Oh, well, there are 5 scholarships for Palestinian people. 5. 5. This is
Well,
44.
the thing is, you're right, Jacoby. It shouldn't be based on one part merit is where my ethnicity comes from. It shouldn't
that
be that
it
way. It
is
should be based on
all
merit.
contextual.
And then number 2, to make it even worse.
So
they're not
you're
giving
against?
enough
Are you against the
anyway.
Jewish scholarships too? Then
Well, should we have the white supremacist?
are you
scholarship?
against the Jewish
I mean,
scholarships?
come on. Yeah, of course. The thing is, it should be based on merit only.
It is
And
merit
the thing
based.
is,
All
why
the
is it
scholarships
why is
are.
it merit? Why is it merit? Because
Nick, did you get a scholarship?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
You didn't get a
No,
scholarship?
Not to any of the private schools.
Did
I
you
went to
apply
did
for a
pay
scholarship?
Pardon? No, of course not.
So therefore, you are complaining that you didn't get a scholarship because
I'm not
you didn't
complaining.
do
We
the
didn't
work
even
to apply
bother.
for a scholarship.
Okay,
So therefore,
what
nobody should get a
my
scholarship.
was, I reached
Hey,
into the
Jacoby,
drawer.
because we've only got a few more minutes. I know we got to get to the Ukraine, Russia, China show and everything. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, because I did want to get to one other issue that y'all kind of alluded to and everything, and we can get more into it on next week and everything. But I've said before that I am is the one that is organized protests. I do know that there are outside agitators, and yes, there have been some accusations of outside agitation, even in the protests that are going on the campuses and everything along those lines. So I had asked Rick when he was here, and I'm not Rick, Steve, when he was here, about what President Joe Biden said. And this is what he actually said as of yesterday, because he did address the protest on Thursday. He said, dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. Look, it's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's a right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. And yes, I will say that there are probably some people, including some of those that were arrested, that are outside agitators and everything.
that sounds reasonable. They should, instead of calling him Sleepy Joe, because Trump's the one who's falling asleep in court every day, they should start calling him Reasonable Joe. I mean, that's his whole deal, is he's an institutionalist. He's been in national government for 50 years. He's always, looking for that was Obama's problem. No drama, Obama. Well, he was like, he tried to, always find, get people together and not be pissed. And, it's not great to be to sound reasonable in a time when people yelling crazy crap dominate the news.
Yeah. And speaking of crazy crap, like I said, I've been involved in those. But you told me, what is are you concerned at all about these outside agitator accusations? Because I do know that sometimes the outside agitators do cause disevil. That's the word I was looking for. Disevil and everything along those lines. But are you concerned? Because there is a lot of accusation that some of these folks in some of these protests are outside agitators. I mean, that's part of what they were saying about the New York arrest and some of the other arrests, including the ones where Ricky is in California.
I mean, yeah, I don't like the accusations because we know that there are outside agitators. The problem is when we start pointing to and only focusing on the agitators and not focusing on actually what the message is. This is part of the problem. This is part of the problem of modern day protests themselves is that a lot of times in that protest, people begin to just ignore the outside agitators instead of deal with, because they allow that outside agitator to become the actual face of the protest rather than the face of the protest being the message. And then the message gets lost. The news coverage becomes the outside agitators because that's what brings all the clicks and the money. And then you don't really get to have that discussion that needs to happen.
So there's different kinds of outside agitators. There are people who are advocating for a cause, and looking at UCLA, it looks like the counter protesters, the people had some people who just wanted to bust heads and spray people with tear gas. They came in, they beat up the Proud Boys were recognized among the Palestinian protesters who came in to attack the protesters. They beat up student reporters. They were just like, dipshits who wanted to get in there and get in fights.
I mean, but you can say the same thing about what happened in New York, because I think that there was a police officer that fired into the student body and everything, and we don't know how reckless that was in terms of the way that he did it. I don't know whether it was a dummy bullet or an actual bullet that he was.
Yeah, those dummy bullets, if used with malice, will F you up. If you're not supposed to shoot rubber bullets, rubber bullets are supposed to be like getting punched in the stomach. You've got this big wad of rubber, you get hit in the stomach, it hurts like hell, it knocks you down, it takes you out of the action. But during the BLM riots, some cops were aiming at people's heads. You get hit in the head with that, it'll take your eye out, it'll give you a concussion.
Yeah, there are, and then not to mention just the physical being there. You have the outside agitators. I mean, Fox News is an outside agitator in their reporting and how, they really don't, well, half the time they don't report unless there's something bad that they can push down the way to say, oh, well, this is the worst thing. So you have those outside agitators and particular reporters as well that push a narrative that shouldn't be there, rather than pushing the message or actually having a discussion around that message.
So I think it's, sorry, Sasha, go ahead.
One reason why I like CNN is that I don't listen to their commentary as much as I see the real picture, which is taken and shown in real time. This is not what Fox News is doing or many other outlets. So on CNN, the stream, what I could see that the protesters, when faced the police, they were absolutely no resistance. They were almost happy to be taken to the bus, and that would absolutely infuriate their sponsors and donors, because they are not paying money to these idiots just to go peacefully to the bus. And what they're going to be in the bus, where we will complain that the bus is not comfortable enough, that they should get bigger and better buses. What is that all about?
I mostly agree with Sasha. What is craziest to me about these protests is how well-behaved and reasonable everybody is being. 2,000 people get arrested without much violence at all from either the protesters or the police. They reach agreements on various campuses to end the protests. If you look back at the protests of '68, if you look back at the BLM stuff, there's been virtually no damage and nobody's been killed. So I don't know what the deal is, why everybody's so well behaved, but I like it.
Those protests were genuine, where this protests is a theater which is paid by their donors and sponsors, and the people who are participating in this process, they are opportunistic people who want to get paid for nothing, and that's all there is to it, nothing more. And this is
that comment right there, Mark, is the reason why that's what worries me about the outside agitators. Every protest has some type of financial backing, because not everybody has a poster that they can hold up. And especially when they have an organized organization name on there. So to argue that only these protests now happen, that's an outside agitation thing that I really don't like, because there is a message and that these individuals are outside protesting about. And we begin to forget that and then begin to throw in conspiracy theories. Oh, George Soros, and oh, well, they're trying to bring down the government. Oh, they just want to get paid for just standing there. That's not true.
I'm thinking maybe we have fewer outside agitators this time around, because the agitators, their time and money is better spent like doing social media. In the protests of the late 60s, the protests were lousy with people, outside people, FBI, fake hippies, Russian kind of agents trying to rile everybody up. But now if you want to rile everybody up or see what people are up to, whether you're FBI or Russia, you just go online. You don't need to pay money to send people in.
Yeah. And then also it goes into the fact that these are more decentralized. They're campus focused. They're not really outside in the middle of the streets and, everybody in a coordinated effort and saying the same exact thing. These are more decentralized. Like with the Northwestern and Brown, it's getting quelled because they've got their agreement with the colleges. There are other individuals that that are doing similar things, because I'm sure what UCLA is doing is different from what's happening in Michigan. So this is more decentralized. So even if it were financial backing, and it'd be hard to do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you need to be George Soros to be an outside agitator at UCLA, because parking is $17.
Yeah, that's a little too much money, because then you got to pay not only the protest, but then you got to pay the parking. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right. Should we wrap it up? It looks like we're the last two standing,
I guess. Oh, did you watch the Fallout series yet?
Yeah, I did.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Such a great series.
And I enjoyed Walton Goggins. I like him every time he pops up.
The cool part I heard is that, so if you've played the game or even done the stories of the game, it's more enjoyable because there's certain things that that are happening. Plus, you can see it in the same world. Mm-hmm. But Goggins said that he didn't even play the game or do anything, and he just played the part. And he was perfect. I mean, he could have literally been in, Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 or one of the other games that are out there. But he played that role just, chef's kiss. It was beautiful.
Also, my wife is writing a book set in the 1950s. And so in our house, we're always discussing like, all right, what would that look like? What would people do in the 50s? Like, I'm always like, what was the currency of sex in the 50s? I think the hand job was what people, traded in the 50s, because good girls, you could get pregnant. The pill wasn't, but we're always talking about the 50s. We're looking at pictures of the 50s, and to see a whole world set in a steampunk future version of the 1950s, which is Fallout, is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. We'll get ready to end and everything. I do have to ask you to make them in one this whole show and everything. What does the shirt say again and everything? Because I really like it, whatever the shirt says, because it says it's how you will talk to and who you will talk to.
When I talk to Nick and Sasha. Yeah, every time I talk to Nick and Sasha, that's what I believe, because they go off of the deep end.
I feel like Nick makes it like professional wrestling a little bit. He's saying stuff just to.
Yeah, I think
he's that outside agitator.
Yeah, totally, being an outside agitator. And on that note, we'll get on out of here, but we'll have some guests on next week, and I think Steve will be giving us a detailed report as to his visit with President Biden. But we'll get on out of here.
Good weekend.
Catch y'all later on.
All right.